God wanted couples to breed godly offspring. So life in the Bible turned into a contest of women who even counted their own sisters as rivals to see who could have the most children. And other at that time, multiple wives was a thing, and was a competition. Today, that's not really a part of our world, but I want to touch on it today. I wrote a book called Mr. Prossidy's Robin Hood Assignment today. I think it lifts the veil, and it's the first time, the Lord uses me. I was had to write a story. I'm here at Adams State University to expose their connection to the Lolita Express. And I thought of Charlie Wagoner, the Robin Hood of Colorado. So I'm going to break that down and the most important things about what's going on in our world today, including Charlie Kirk and how it seems like they had almost turned him to Rome, according to some of the tweets and emails that Candace Owen is speaking about and passionately invoking her memory of conversations they had. Seems like it's a Roman plot to me. So let's welcome everybody to Mudflood Was Armageddon. Mudflood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair, nonviolent, honest way. Check this out. It's a disclaimer. Now I can show some videos. I want to remind you, don't stop your medical treatments. Keep going to the doctor, doing your thing like it's going to really help. Let's see what I got. Got this guy saying, if you want to understand my grandfather, you have to clearly see that religion was the basis for everything. The last Habsburg emperor's grandson is still around talking about, yeah, man, we ruled this flat earth for 600 years. Habsburgs did. Dynasties. What else? Hepburn versus Griswold, 5 days after the day when the note by its term fell due, that is to say, on the 25th of February, 1862, in an exigent crisis of the nation, in which the government was engaged in putting down an armed rebellion of vast magnitude, Congress passed an act authorizing the issue of $150 million. There's your first act of creating money out of thin air, at least in the United States. So documented here. Here is something about Gray's associate Wilson was apparently continuing to the work of a reported collaborator of Gray from the 1950s McCarthy Committee Council, Roy Cohn, now dead of AIDS, according to the former head of the Vice Squad for one of America's biggest cities. Cohn's job was to run the little boys. Must have been a track coach or something, because I don't get it. Say you had an admiral, a general, a congressman who did not want to go along with the program. Cohn's job was to set them up. I set them up, maybe trying to get them credentials to be referee when they run the little boys. Some of these things, I don't understand what they are talking about. Let's see here. Roy Cohn was providing protection. There were a bunch of pedo X-Files involved. That's where Cohn, the FBI guy, got his power from blackmail, like scorpions investigating you know what, coitus, that means sex. Roy Cohn and J. Edgar Hoover would continue to encircle each other with a wary fascination for years. Wow. It seems like the gay thing was really a big thing and still is. Meyer Lansky is a genius who put everything together. And he says, and as the man who nailed J. Edgar Hoover, when I asked what they meant, Hamill recalled, they told me Lansky had some pictures of Hoover in some kind of gay situation with Clyde Tolson. Meyer Lansky, the mafia guy, was the guy who controlled the pictures, and he had made his deal with Hoover to lay off. That was the reason. They said that for decades, for a long time, they had nothing to fear from the FBI. The community, she explained, had historically defined marriage in America. The community did. It takes the community to define marriage, or the Bible. The sexual revolution involved a conflict, often direct, always perceived between two moralities, two ways of life. Few historians have examined the sexual revolution directly. Most treat it as a side note to political revolution and upheaval. According to Elaine Tyler May, argues that fears of sexual chaos tend to surface during times of crisis and rapid social change. So that is documented. The weatherman, Mark Rudd, one of the heads of the weather undermen, Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn, the people who brought you Barack Obama, that's with a capital B, smash monogamy. They went from sexual experimentation to smash monogamy, orgies, homosexuality. He said it wasn't that fun. After a week or two, it was disastrous. Foistering, petty jealousies, driving people out of the collective, sexual confusion, not to mention an epidemic of sexually transmitted diseases. They called it the weather crud. The guy Rudd, the guy who said the final straw, said there was a crab, on a girl crawling on her eyebrow. And he was going to kiss her on the eyebrow. I'm pretty sure it was something like that. Smash it, smash it. So this is from the other day. It's Bernadine Dorn. Huh. Look at that. One of the neocons, the new guys, I hate Trump. I hate everything. Biden's bad. The vaccines are bad. Fauci's bad. I'm a conservative now, Jimmy Dore says. And this guy, John, I caught him in the act of saying abortion tips. The Bible gives abortion tips for pregnant, unfaithful wives in Numbers chapter 5. Knowing Numbers chapter 5, I said, no, that has nothing to do with it. So this girl here, she's one of my online writing instructors, why I wrote another paper that'll probably get another A, but I'm not bragging. It's just so easy to get A's. These people today are not educated. I mean, I could have got A, I think, in 8th grade. Well, of course, I was reading at a sophomore degree in college level in 4th grade. So anyway, it's subjective, changeable, prone to manipulation. Did I get that other quote from her? No. But she's one that said, it's a calling to be a writer, even though she's an atheist. So it's weird. Irony. Due to its double-sided nature, irony is a powerful tool for social bonding among those who share an understanding. For that reason, it is also a source of division. You know what? Jesus came to bring division. the God of love came to bring division because he wanted people to rightly divide the truth and get down to the truth. The truth is, it's always going to be abortion. The people that have changed it to, it's the economy, stupid. We got to keep our way of life. That's the abortion argument. Now, and the neoconservatives, the Jimmy Dores, they're lying about what the Bible says. This is not what Numbers chapter 5. It does not give any tips about abortion. These guys, they love being neoconservatives and Trump bad, Biden bad, Fauci bad, Bible and Christianity bad.
Actually gives abortion tips for pregnant unfaithful wives in Numbers chapter 5. Jesus never says that government should force citizens to be pregnant against their will, or that.
So they still are not the good guys. He's talking about, in Great Britain, they're arresting people for silent prayers. So Jimmy Dore, he's got out some good information, but exposing a lie is not replacing it with the truth of Scripture. One more time. I know you don't like to look at me, but one more time. It is a wide, wide, wide road, and many are called, but few are chosen. It means it's even that much wider than you ever thought. Their father is the father of lies. He was our father until we were born again, not healed, given a new spirit, born by the water, born by the Spirit. It is a wide, wide road. When they expose a lie, unless they're telling you it is Scripture, Scripture alone, then they're going to come backing into the story supporting abortion. Watch how smoothly this transition goes from we support you Christians to the Bible teaches abortion. That's just bullshit.
They've arrested a lot of women doing this, right? A woman just holding up a sign. Here's another woman. She holds up a sign. Coercion is a crime. Here to talk only if you want. So they're not doing anything that threatens anyone, but the government,
I agree.
From a left-wing perspective, is silencing them and turning silent prayer into a crime. So
yeah, I would say that's not very left-wing. I mean, and again, the good news for these ladies is that the Bible never comes out against abortion. God asserts that a fetus is property in Exodus 21 and that a woman's life has more value in his eye. God actually gives abortion tips for pregnant unfaithful wives in Numbers chapter 5. Jesus never said.
Told you. That's Jimmy Dore. That's what this was all about. And if you push comes to shove, I don't know if Redacted has completely changed yet, but it's going to be about abortion. That is the life and death situation that we're dealing with right now. What else you got?
Consider Biden the extreme left, Jim. I just
okay. Well, how about just the left?
Extreme left? The extreme left is trying to get the extreme left is trying to get everybody health care, and some of them are real assholes. But I don't think it's the same. I mean, we just saw Brendan Carr publicly coerce a major corporation to self-censor, and I never thought I'd be cheering for Monday Night Football for giving the finger to Sinclair. I mean, good God, Bob.
Oh, what? Really? They're conservative. They're the people. A lot of times Christians are going to them now because they're putting it out. It's the FBI. Now, when they need to, they can get somebody important, put them in play. It's all MK Ultra. Patty Campbell Hearst, daughter of one of the richest families since the reset, obviously a setup, but when they teach lessons, they'll kidnap your daughter and brainwash her.
Bart Osborne testified before Congress that all of the VCI suspects he dealt with in Vietnam died due to their mistreatment. When a VCI gave what was deemed actionable intelligence, a provincial reconnaissance unit was assigned to hunt down and kill the target. PRUs were a mixture of South Vietnamese and American military, mostly Navy SEAL teams, under the command of the CIA. 4 years after the Phoenix program was initiated, the New York Times on July 15, 1971, revealed that 26,843 non-military Viet Cong insurgents and sympathizers had been neutralized in the previous 14-month period. The exact total of civilian injuries and deaths due to Phoenix will never be known. After Westbrook returned to the United States from Vietnam, William Herman, advising Governor Ronald
You're going
Reagan,
to find this hard to believe, but this ties into them setting up this guy that was in that, hey, dude, want to be a bank robber?
that no other prisoner enjoyed. The DeFreeze faction in the BCA counted many future Symbionese Liberation Army militants as its members, people like Willie Wolfe, Russ Little, and Joe Ramiro. And Westbrook seemed to be positioning DeFreeze to have as much influence over these outsiders as possible. Westbrook was even the one who gave DeFreeze his nom de guerre, Sinkyu, which was a mispronunciation of the surname of Joseph Cinque, the African chief who had led the slave revolt on the ship Amistad. The word Symbionese was also a Westbrook invention, a neologism he had coined that was supposed to refer to the biological concept of symbiosis. The BCA charter required that its leader be chosen by election every 6 months, and since most of the inmates were transferred out in less than 3, allowed the chance to publicize their incriminating knowledge. Private investigator Lake Headley spoke to a Soledad inmate who recounted he made an offer to help DeFreeze get a better work assignment. DeFreeze's reply,
That's a death chamber, gas chamber. Anyway, it went this far.
FBI agent would think up to entrap radical groups he didn't quite understand. The Weather Underground during this period was routinely bombing buildings related to the American war effort in Vietnam, but the Weathermen took pains to ensure the buildings they targeted would be empty or nearly so to minimize casualties. This was as much a tactical decision as a moral one, as the Weathermen understood.
They had no morals. You see how they try to prop up the Weathermen because it leads to Barack Obama and the world can't do without him. But they'll expose some things, the forgotten hippie cult. Hi, my name's Tanya. Somebody died.
Was decided. And the reasoning the SLA offered for the assassination in their first communique was similarly objectively false. After the shooting, the Pacific News Service reported, according to Bay Area journalists with connections on the left, and according to a group of activists who split from the SLA last fall, Foster had been marked for assassination by the SLA last summer, meaning the ID card allegations were likely a misdirection, as the SLA had settled on Foster as a target months before he raised the issue of security or ID cards in Oakland schools. Told interviewers that he had openly bragged about his relationship with Patty Hearst, but grew bitter and angry after she rejected him. Hearst was the granddaughter of the publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst, who had created the largest newspaper, magazine, newsreel, and film business in the world. She had grown up in affluence in San Francisco and was a college sophomore at the time of her abduction, actively, though secretly, engaged in the radical politics that dominated the UC Berkeley campus. By all accounts, DeFreeze had been kicking around the plan to kidnap Hearst since his time at Vacaville. Several members of the Vacaville BCA told private investigator Lake Headley that DeFreeze had discussed plans to abduct Patty Hearst and 2 of her sisters to hold for ransom. Headley even uncovered evidence that DeFreeze had pitched the idea of a fake kidnapping to Patty Hearst herself during their relationship as a way of extorting money from her wealthy family when DeFreeze got out of prison. Patty apparently rejected the plan, and her revulsion at the idea of extorting her own family was a primary factor leading to her breakup with DeFreeze. The kidnapping itself took place on February 4, 1974, when DeFreeze, on the audio tape, in between rantings about U.S. foreign policy and promising that the SLA would abolish rent, DeFreeze demanded a, quote, good faith gesture from the Hearst family. $70 of free food should be distributed to each poor Californian over the next 4 weeks. Patty's father scrambled to meet the demands and set up distribution centers all over California, but the logistics were complicated, and several distribution sites descended into anarchy when demand exceeded supply.
Wow.
Have been pointed in Hearst's direction the whole time. But when an FBI agent took the tape to be analyzed by lip readers, he was told that Hearst had said, I'm Tanya, up against the wall, mother. Elements of the new left media ecosystem.
So, weird times, can they brainwash people? Do they? Was it the king and the Pope? Was the Charlie Kirk becoming a Roman Catholic? He was. It's going to be the Noahide laws. We should have seen it coming long ago.
And then would Vance still be able to run an additional 2 terms?
I don't know. Don't forget they change the rules to match whatever they want. Like they can change. They've been ignoring the Constitution actively. I mean, I heard one of the sources we have in Interpol said all the legal systems now, including in America with its strong common law tradition, they're now changing the rules of evidence to say, well, hearsay isn't hearsay. You can have hearsay evidence and can still be admitted. Hello? You know, I mean, like, that goes against any notion of the due process to say, you know, hey, I heard this about someone. Okay, good. That's
Hey, you know what else goes against everything? Like saying, we don't demand to see your papers, but they demand to see your ID, even if you want to buy a lighter. And are they trying to change it? It was Roman Catholicism a part of Charlie Kirk's future? So something had to happen. He, you know, who knows what actually happened, but their story fell apart the first day. Go back and see my video made the next day where I exposed the rifle and everything, saying, no way.
That would have been dishonest, but people were somehow really angry. Somebody clearly hit the panic button. Suddenly a bunch of videos were being made disputing the narrative. People were going, I knew Charlie and he was truly evangelical to his core, blah, 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 blah. And I want to tell you this, it felt coordinated. It felt fake. It felt unnecessary. But most importantly, it was untrue.
And she's going to just be so insulted that evangelicals, look at her Roman Catholic. She's a new Roman Catholic. She married into the wealthy Roman Catholic family. When you don't care, really, it'll make sense to the wide road. They ignore all of the scandals of the. Watch this. We'll watch a few minutes of it. There's no talk about the billions of dollars paid out to the pedophile Roman priests.
It wasn't true. And I'm going to share with you some more truth so that you can contextualize it. Charlie was attending Mass weekly. He was sometimes even attending Mass daily. He was not attending Pastor Rob McCoy's church. As I mentioned before, yes, he was praying the rosary. Charlie, in fact, was wearing the St. Michael pendant when he died, okay? As has already been publicized, Erica took a Catholic bishop with her to pray over his body on the day that he died. These are all indisputable facts. And it is also a fact, which was presented by Megyn Kelly, that a few weeks before his death, Erica had a priest come over to pray over them when some witches thought it would be funny, whatever, to put a hex on him, okay? That's a lot of things that were happening behind the scenes. And the people at Turning Point USA knew those things to be true. Okay.
So you know those things to be true. Now, do you believe that the priest can turn wine into blood or bread into the actual body of Jesus Christ so that he is continually suffering every time they make those 17 moves and say the magic words? Well, if you didn't believe it, they would kill you back in the day when they had power, and they've always been weird. I mean, people used to think they were the Antichrist. That happened during the Armageddon times. Now the beast is loose, and there's a new deception going on.
Knew everything that I just shared with you. They knew for a fact. So I was a bit astonished when Andrew Colvett and Alex Clark similarly jumped in this inauthentic attempt to dissuade the idea that Charlie was.
So he's doing daily mass, and they got things to prove it. And this is what the TPUSA said. Turning Point.
Mass. He loved the ritual of it. He loved the beauty of old Catholic churches and the stained glass.
And him and Erica would go sometimes.
Yeah, well, Erica's a cradle Catholic, but she ended up kind of like me. I grew up Catholic and First Communion and went to Catholic high school, but then I ended up becoming a Christian in college through.
Does anybody think it's going to be hard for him to make the changeover when it's kind of enforced? You know, it's kind of encouraged. The book 1984, you know, Big Brother, collectivism, the ministry of love. He's imprisoned at the ministry of love. rat torture, thought criminals, memory holes. When they wanted to appeal to it, and I've read this book a number of times. I took a class in 1984, the year it came out, just to say I took an English class on 1984 and 1984. There, I got to say it finally, like a tattoo. Finally, somebody asked me about it. Well, I don't have a bunch of tattoos. I don't even have a whole tattoo. So this is a part of the book. They went to the movies that night. The book is kind of, Winston's tale in the first person. Last night to the flicks, all war films. One very good one of a ship full of refugees being bombed somewhere in the Mediterranean. Audience much amused by shots of a huge fat man trying to swim away with a helicopter after him. First, you saw him wallowing along the water like a porpoise. Then you saw him through the helicopter's gun sights. Boom, boom, boom. It was a bloody sight. And then there was a middle-aged woman. She might have been a Jewish woman sitting up in the bow of with a little boy about 3 years old. The little boy screaming with fright, hiding his head between her breasts as if he were trying to burrow right into her. The woman trying to put her arms around him, comfort him, although she was blue with fright herself. And then the helicopter planted a 20-kilo bomb. One of the, what did they call them? The low-class women. Everybody else was applauding and thought it was great. But a woman down in the Prole seat, P-R-O-L-E, Prole part of the house suddenly started kicking up a fuss and shouting that didn't oughter show it, not in front of the kids. They ain't right in front of the kids. So the police had to take her out. And it alludes to that they killed her. But even in 1948, they knew there was, it's the children and the Gaza, it's the children, it's the abortion, but we don't care today. Daddy's watching. It's kind of like Big Brother. You don't think Trump's in on it? That this is coming? It's a part of your future? Wake up and smell the coffee. The community, she explains, has historically defined marriage in America. Fears of social chaos. Dionysian impulse of the hippie culture. This is more of that, what they did describing. If you want to screenshot it and slow it down, it gets into more of the morals of the weather undermen and why they probably would be attracted to someone like Barack Obama. Days of rage, smash, monogamy. It's all the same thing. Bill Ayers and I were leaders in DC. And later they were leaders at the Chicago University where supposedly Barack Obama showed up and they took an interest in him and said, you should go into politics. You're such a good communicator. You're the best communicator in the whole world. This was interesting. This girl gets paid.
There for hire, as you could say.
Okay, I think right now I was trying to see on Instagram, she's currently private.
Yes,
so
currently
it goes back and forth, Nate, as you mentioned.
Yes.
But I checked out riseandresist.org and just, on the homepage, they describe themselves as a nonviolent direct action group committed to opposing, disrupting, and defeating any government act that threatens democracy, equality, and our civil liberties. So I guess that's pretty wide ranging, right? If she's appearing at other events and protests, is she just someone who has a lot of free time? Or you believe that there's some incentive behind her?
Yeah, there's some incentive, and she's a manager at Lincoln Center Theater, and that's a beautiful theater. That's just a little less beautiful knowing that. But I like how they say that it's nonviolent when they carry signs saying 8647 and by any means necessary. There's obvious violent rhetoric.
He's got a nice little Star of David going on his chest. They're exposing a lie, but are they going to tell the truth?
And
What
they're
is
also,
this?
the folks at Rise and Resist are always the ones following me, preventing me from doing interviews with protesters who actually want to speak with me. They just try to stop them from speaking to me. Yeah.
It's interesting when you pressed her on who she's with. She seemed to do this. Let's watch the soundbite here. She interrupts your question. Watch.
Go.
So
Shut up. It's so annoying.
So Stephen Miller fired all the ICE people who were in, and he has a quota, which is what the Nazis did, and he just wants.
All right, let's look at a couple of scriptures and we'll move back on. Jacob's thigh. I was looking at this today. Thought I'd share with it here. The lampstand base, the base, her thigh will waste away. There's that Numbers chapter 5. Supposedly, this is the chapter, brings a curse, the bitter, the water. I mean, her thigh will rot away, her belly will swell. If she is not taken the oath correctly. So here it is in the whole Numbers chapter 5. And I would challenge that one man from the wide, wide road, a loving abortion. Read this and if somebody read this, and then if they want to post a verse that they think has something to do with an abortion. It's not. It's a way that if they had something, I'm glad we don't have these laws today, but they had a law to prove if she had been unfaithful or not. Now, I thought this was interesting here. Jehoshaphat reigned over Judah. He was 35 years old when he began to reign. He walked in the ways of Asa. Now, is this the one I wanted? It was, I wanted Hezekiah. Maybe it's 21. Well, anyway, I was talking. Here's another one of those. The Lord struck him in his bowels with an incurable disease. Okay, so did this man have an abortion? That was the takeaway on this. He got him in his, his intestines, his bema. He struck him. It was incurable. The bowels, the body. Do I have anything in my womb? More sons in my womb. But it's not really talking, she wasn't pregnant. The girl that said that was not pregnant. She could not have become pregnant. No, it's a curse. So let's keep going. I got to get to the whole Robin Hood of Colorado. Robert Goddard, this whole rocket thing going to the moon is
especially
Nazi.
Rockets would be able to achieve the goal of reaching the moon.
Well, they have to give credit to somebody in America, but the truth is Goddard was washed up by the end of it, and the Nazis, the V2, they felt they needed the von Braun.
Behind him, largely of his own doing. He was not only suspicious of competitors, but also potential colleagues. When young scientists began setting up the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, Goddard
That's the Jack Parsons devil-worshipping crew.
refused to talk with them. Rocket science was his baby, and Goddard wanted to keep it that way.
He was essentially alone.
Braun's team shifted into high gear in a secret facility near the town of Peenemünde. There, they designed and tested the terrifying V2. It could hit targets over 150 miles away. During World War II, V2s would terrorize London and Antwerp.
And the rest is history. They brought him over. They took him to the moon. Goddard faded into obscurity.
Goddard had sought out government work, but the only military contract he landed was far from ideal and far from Roswell. His assignment, to build rocket assists for heavy aircraft, required that he and his men relocate to a Navy base in Maryland.
And the rocket assists are basically hydrogen peroxide going through a nozzle. 5 celebs have weird backgrounds. I've talked about all these people, but I'm glad
plays the
you know
devil
they're
in this
getting
movie.
some
Generation,
new
just the total
press.
rock.
You know a lot about Jim Morrison here. So what's this one? The ruler of the world was still coming as of John chapter 14, verse 30. I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming. He has no claim on me, but he was sticking to the plan. The fundamental law. I want to tell you, why is the law confusing? They make it that way. Still, our ignorance is no excuse. Does this make any sense? When a case arises for judicial determination and the decision depends on the alleged inconsistency of a legislative provision within the Constitution, it is the plain duty of the Supreme Court to compare the act with the fundamental law, and if the former cannot, upon a fair construction, be reconciled with the latter, to give effect to the Constitution rather than the statute. Well, it seems confusing, but it's not really. Not really. Let's keep going here. More about the Weather Underground coming out today or yesterday. Things we've been talking about for years, but now they're finally catching on.
La Bombas across the United States, an average of nearly 5 per day. That one stat alone would make this one of the most turbulent times in American history, but they don't talk about this in history class, just like they don't talk about the role that comrades have played in some of the biggest atrocities in the modern world. All you hear about is the make love, not war hippie music scene, which, yes, there were a lot of peaceful people that fell into that category, but when they just focus on that and ignore experienced internal conflicts, which is a sanitized way of saying they did things that warranted federal investigations and then broke up into rival gangs. Bomba campaign targeting government buildings and several banks. Some attacks were preceded by evacuation figure. The Progressive Labor Party, a working class focused group of old school commies, and the Revolutionary Youth Movement, a militant group that eventually became the Weathermen. And just like the Tifa Tards today, this was a status symbol. The more radical you were, the cooler you were.
And the more likely you were to get a sexually transmitted disease. They did it, these people.
Of perversion between violins and intimate acts, let's say.
Everybody's
When you get to the upper echelons of these cults, there's always some perversion going on.
Very wide road.
Let's look at Diana Alton, for example. I'm sure you guys have all seen the memes today where a pretty girl goes off to college and next thing you know, she's a complete freak. Well, that's exactly what happened to Diana.
But blaming the commies is not going to be enough to say we can vote our way out of this. Those days are over.
She joins the Weathermen. Members were told to give up jobs and to cut off all personal relationships. Personal assets were handed over to the group. Diana gave her collective the shareholder checks and credit cards she received from.
And we've been talking about this for 3 days, but I'm glad it's catching on.
Just talked about the people that have fallen prey to this ideology.
It's not all communism, liberalism. It's the fact that Rome is coming back in favor, and they, the Habsburgs, Spain, killed the blacks, the Hispanics, the Native Americans in the United States alone. Lord knows what they did in those other places, but their plan always is the same. Now, the timeline of the Ku Klux Klan, when I was doing my research, I went over this and found out that, it was very, very powerful in Indiana and Colorado in particular. million people in Colorado, 300,000 in the Ku Klux Klan. They had using planes to fly from the West Coast back to Washington for rallies of 200,000 people. I wanted to find out about the Robin Hood of Colorado, but during that time, it was a white-only world in all of the United States. Sure, they freed the slaves and then they had Reconstruction. They say the one-drop rule was passed sometime early in the 1900s, but they don't give a date. They know when Brutus stabbed Caesar down to the minute, but they don't know when the United States passed the one-drop rule in the early 1900s where, okay, all baseball teams have to have white only, and then the other teams can have anybody they want. But white is better. White gets better drinking fountains and everything. They get loans from banks. It was white world. Colorado did it. I looked up John Galen Locke, Hiram Evans, decided I'd go with Hiram Evans as one of the people in the book. Now, here's the background of Charles Waggoner. He somehow, can you read here, knew the bank faced an inevitable collapse. Was he the only banker in the world? He's the only Robin Hood in Colorado that swindled these banks. So it says he traveled to Denver on the 30th, executed a plot to save his bank, a web of illegal transactions, because he had secret codes. Waggoner swindled $500,000 and had it sent to his bank, and it provided temporary funds the next month when the Great Depression hit and everybody lost all their money, but not in Telluride. He just fessed up, and basically the story is he wanted to do it so he could look himself in the eye. Well, they had their own Tesla power plant there. It says, he purloined their funds. He needed secret codes to get the money. That's buried in here. He had the execution of orders. He defrauded them. Nobody ever caught him or how he did it or whatever happened to the money. They never got it back. And he did 5 years in prison. It's equivalent of 8.5 million, one of the largest unsolved. It's kind of like, well, who did buy those American Airlines stocks the day before the 9/11? And that was September 10th that they did that too. And this was September 10th when Robin Hood, Charlie did it. So somehow I know that he had to have confidential banker codes sent to each of those banks in New York, and he had to do it in person. So I wrote a nice little fictional story about, who did it and how they did it. Now, he says they had the money sent to Telluride's only example of neoclassical architecture. Well, 109 West Colorado is not their only building. It is one of the smallest banks around. And it's not on the corner of where they tried to show you where he had the money sent, where the Waggoner plaque is. Oh, I was looking for the plaque. Charlie Waggoner. No, this is the inside. This is the Bank of Telluride. They said they sent it, I think, to another bank. But anyway, Telluride today is one of the richest towns. The 35% of the houses sell for over $5 million. He got arrested, had to do 5 years. He didn't try to elude capture. He basically said he had to save his town so he could look himself in the eye. Well, how about that? And Wall Street crashed. the next month. I think it is quite the coincidence. Now, for the first time in history, did I put it together? Let's see if if I can go to the actual story that I wrote today. And who did I blame? Let's see. I'll just start the beginning. The year is 1929, and the plan was to crash the stock market in New York City by the end of October. Mr. Andrew Prosody, Andy to his friends, looked down at two of the most important signatures he could imagine. On the left-hand side of the page was written Hiram Wesley Evans. He was the Grand Dragon, the most powerful Ku Klux Klan member in the United States. And on the right-hand side of this secret plan was signed by the governor of New York, Freemason Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And basically it's a story about, I bring up the implausibility of how he did it, and how he even, got flown, because it's quite a trip. You get from Denver and then to New York and do the 6 banks in a week. So he had to fly there so he could meet Charles Lindbergh, another notorious Nazi. I hope that you were able to see that. I was supposed to be sharing the screen, but that could be it. And when you do look at Telluride today, perhaps we could do that. Make sure I share the screen. Let's just go. So there's a number of, this is the big bank on the corner. I want to get a picture of the big bank, and then I'll show you Telluride. That's not the biggest bank. There's the one of the big banks in Telluride. Why didn't Wagoneer save that bank? They didn't know the secret codes? No, there's no plaque saying Charlie Wagner worked in this store. Not at all. Now, if we simply want to look at Telluride, we'll see it's rich. Uber rich are flocking to this small mountain town. There's an article in June 19, 2025, quietly growing its luxury personality. Telluride, the most expensive ski town in the United States, apparently they're shocked. More than 38% of its houses are more than $5 million. That sounds like a lot. Sounds like almost 40%. All because skiing is so popular? No, I think that there was a concerted effort to save Telluride, so that those tunnels or whatever they're now, and they still have that working Tesla power plant that runs on hydroelectric. No, they've always been prepared. And in your mind, if you intuitively know what you're hearing is true, this whole zombie apocalypse thing, that's not pretend. I have your best interest at heart. Me and my friends do. We want you to run away and be safe, not try to fight them. You'll die. You have to ignore them and let them think it's not cost prohibitive. It's cost prohibitive to chase after you, because you won't stand and fight, because you don't want to die. Blessed are those who make the 1335. Blessed are those who make that last 45 years. And we got 20 more years to go. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios, amigos. That's a fun way to say goodbye. And the title, Mr. Prosody. Prosody is an old poetic term for it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Inflection is important.